Hello and welcome into the latest edition of PL Express. Liverpool lose again, but this time it's at home. Are they in crisis? Chelsea suffered their first defeat under Potter as Brighton turned up to face their ex and they were looking their absolute best. Spurs win and criticism turns to credit for Conte. We talk KDB, just brilliant, but still not good enough for Guardiola. RED, Rashford, Eriksen and De Gea. Are the foundations being set at Ten Hag's United? And a five-star performance from Reece Lightning for Arsenal. Hello, Janusz. We've only got a few more of these to do before you're jetting off to the World Cup, so we won't waste any time. We'll get straight into today's topics, and we'll start with the fact that Chelsea lost to Potter's old side, Brighton. It was a 4-1 loss. Lots of people say, oh, this was always going to happen, but I feel that more people have said that after the fact than saying it beforehand. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I don't know why would lots of people say that. I mean, just the fact that you're going back to a good team. I think Graham Potter should know, right? I mean, he knows the team. He knows them inside out. There's not that many changes, really, for the most part. You and I looked like the Zerbi, but let's not give him too much credit in how all different this Brighton football club was. We've talked in the past, I think, given Graham Potter credit because immense pressure moving to a bigger club. He was undefeated, right? So you'd like to think with all the chaos that's been associated with Graham Potter and Chelsea, it hasn't been a bad start. And I'm not saying it has been, but I'm just starting to wonder if he's starting to waffle just a little bit in terms of his formations, in terms of him trying to do things. I mean, Chelsea have got to win things right away. We all know that under Abramovich. I don't think it's much different under Todd Bowley, and they know they're not going to be winning the Premier League. Now, with everybody kind of starting to play a little bit better, there's a question of making the top four. And we've seen it against Salzburg that Raheem Sterling and Christian Pulisic are not wingbacks. Why play them there again? 2 games, one shot between the two players. One shot. I mean, Sterling statistically was maybe the worst player on the pitch in terms of defending and all of that. That's not why you pay the money to bring him in. We all know the goal tallies for Sterling right now. And for Christian, I don't even want to mention that because he was asking for opportunities. He got 2 of them against Salzburg. He was sort of involved in a couple of goals, but not really a great performance. So look, I mean, go back to basics. And without Reece James, I don't see how this team, and without wingbacks, true wingbacks, how do they play still 3 in the back? I don't get it. No Fofana, no Koulibaly, right? I mean, it's a patchwork, maybe enforced, okay? But I think if I'm Chelsea, I'm going to back 4, and I'm playing Chilwell. Cucurella is no center back. I don't care how much he improves in that position. So back to basic, go to the system that works, and play to the strength of your players. Because you're wasting Raheem Sterling right now.
What are your realistic expectations then for Chelsea this season with these factors a part of what we're talking about here, Janusz?
They're good enough to be in the top 4. It's going to be a fight. I always think that when there's so many teams involved, sometimes that's a little bit better because everyone almost feels like they have to be absolutely perfect, and we know that's impossible. So realistic expectations continue to stay in the top 4. I think Chelsea will have a shout just like anybody else because nobody else is perfect right now. If you look at Spurs, if you look at certainly Liverpool is outside of it, Manchester United. So I think that's realistic, but I worry because the issues he had in terms of scoring continue to be there. Nobody that we can pick out and say, you know what, this player is going to continue to score. Look at Oba. When was the last time he scored?
Yeah, as it stands right now, obviously outside of the top 4, so they've got some work to do in these next 2 rounds. But let's move on to talk about the team that definitely have a lot more work to do. Liverpool with another loss, this time coming to Leeds, Janusz. Their first home loss in the Premier League in 30 matches. Is this a new low in the bad recent run, and are they in crisis?
Well, about their standards, you have to say they are. And some of it, there's very little you can do about because of injuries. But as we've said, we've seen those injuries before. I mean, it wasn't all that long ago that Jurgen Klopp was telling us how great, he is in terms of depth, in terms of center backs. We all knew that, right? 4 very good center backs. But I look back 2-3 years ago when they were all injured, it wasn't all that great, right? And I look at it now, and he's got players that he can't count on. That's why, you know, short of you know, saying that there needs to be a revolution, there needs to be a reset. He needs new players. He needs to react immediately. I think when I say that, obviously some of these players will come back. The season will shake itself out, and I think I continue to believe when he starts getting player back, they'll go on a run, and they'll be in a massive fight for top four, right? But I think you almost have to start looking ahead and say, let us not become the Manchester United and Arsenal of the last decade. Let's react now, because you've got to move some of these players on. The entire midfield, I mean, look, Fabinho, we've seen, I mean, massive drop off. Is there a chance for him to recover? Yes, if that midfield is at their best, hungry, young, and capable of running up and down every 3 days. And that's always been an issue. Now there's an issue going forward because of massive injuries, but I wouldn't touch that too much because I think ultimately, if he gets the midfield right, I think the Luis Diaz and Mo Salahs of the world and Diogo Jota when he comes back, that's plenty. That's good enough to get results consistently, right? But in the back, he's got to change that. He's talking about depth. I'm talking what depth? These players never play. I mean, Konate, we always knew in his days at Leipzig, he's always injured, always injured. So is Joel Matip, always injured. Joe Gomez, my goodness, I know he's young, but how many mistakes is that now? I mean, 3, 4, 5 critical mistakes already. And you look at Van Dijk, who's below form, but obviously I think he stays and he's going to get back. So I think he's got to make massive decisions already in January, slowly, maybe get a player in, and then in the summer, he's got to restart the new cycle, because this is exactly what that is. This is not magically going to fix itself. I think you need players that are looking forward to win more trophies, and not players that are, you know, off form and in you know, with the physio day in and day out.
So given those injury issues in the defence that you just highlighted, given the fact that it's just not going right for Joe Gomez at the moment, and to be fair, Virgil van Dijk, he even had Jurgen Klopp say after this game, you cannot defend like that on the second goal. Obviously, he was called out somewhat too. Do they need a new centre-back?
I absolutely think I did say it, but I absolutely think that they need to look at it. You know, do they put trust in players that could be good if they play, which we haven't seen 2 or 3 years. I mean, look at Joel Matip. You know, plays a game or two, out. Konate plays a game or 2 or 3, out, right? And Joe Gomez, we're not sure about. I absolutely think that they need another one. There's not enough there. Look at Manchester City, right? I mean, they have 4 or 5 world-class center backs. Now, we all know Jurgen Klopp is not going to be allowed to spend that sort of money and get those players in, but that doesn't mean that you have to idly just stand by and says, well, we don't have the money. How do we do it? Remember what happened with Coutinho, right? And, you know, I was talking about that midfield, and I didn't even mention in that midfield, you know, Jordan Henderson, that certainly passed his best. He'll give you 2 or 3 great games, but that's not enough. Every three days, you have to be at your best, right? What about, I'm thinking like Thiago Alcantara, who's one of my favorite players, but it almost seems like he's a luxury player right now. It's not a player that's kind of going to run that midfield as well. So I wonder, he may have to sell somebody. You know, I look at Mo Salah, and sacrilegious to say that, but I remember what happened when Coutinho left, right? That's when you got Van Dijk. That's when you got a lot of players, and that's what Liverpool has to do. So he's going to have to sit down and think about, okay, what's next for next 2 or 3 years? 3 years. Are we going to be going through this season like this and hope that everybody's healthy? Yeah, 50-50 chance there. Possible. Highly unlikely, though.
I was going to keep this question to the end, but seeing as though you've mentioned Mo Salah, do you think that if Klopp could do it all over again and Liverpool could do it all over again, they would keep Sadio Mane as opposed to Mo Salah?
I think they've tried. You know, he was underpaid in comparison, and I suppose if they threw an incredible amount of money at him, maybe he would have changed his mind. But from everything that I understand, he just wanted a new challenge. You know, maybe Sadio Mane was one of those that foresaw what was coming. He knew that there's, that's everything you could have gotten out of that team, and they've gotten a lot. It sounds pretty negative here about Liverpool, but let's think about that. I mean, every trophy just about possible, right? Under Jurgen Klopp. So yeah, I can think of one, that they haven't won, and I think Sadio Mane knew to some degree, if he admits to that or not, that he just wanted a different challenge, that with this challenge, there's going to be struggle. So I'm trying to get into his head. I don't know it, but I think that, Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp are not silly enough not to want Sadio Mane, but, it was probably, he just wanted to go elsewhere.
Yeah, just before we close off on Liverpool, they've lost more ground on the top four, obviously. It's their second consecutive Premier League defeat. It's their fourth in 12 games this season, which means they've lost a third of their Premier League games this season. A lot of problems there. And maybe Leeds are sorting their problems out. We don't really have time to get into that today. But before we do head off to the World Cup, we'll take a look at where everybody is in the table. But credit to Jesse Marsch for getting a result when he needed it there. I'm going to squeeze Manchester City in here. Erling Haaland wasn't even in the squad for this one, but never mind, Kevin De Bruyne was, and he's got a wonderful free kick. And City beat Leicester 1-0. But even though we wax lyrical on a weekly basis about Kevin De Bruyne, it's still not enough for Pep Guardiola. He was a little bit grumpy to our Jan Åge Fjørtoft after the game, saying that De Bruyne is not fulfilling his potential and that he wants more. He actually said in another interview, he scored a fantastic goal, but he's not playing at his best. He knows I don't have to tell him. His dynamic is still not perfect. He knows that. I've spoken to him. Oh my goodness, Janusz. What is good enough for Pep Guardiola?
I love it, right? We were just talking about Jurgen Klopp. Do you remember last time he said something like that about Mo Salah or some of his top players? I mean, on one hand, of course, you want to protect your players, right? But on the other hand, it's the approach of Pep Guardiola, because top players know they want to be challenged, right? I mean, if you as a manager say it to a player who's always playing and everybody knows how good he is, I mean, you should just take that. This is nothing against you. This is your manager telling you, I love you. You're great. You can even be greater, right? And that's the difference, between, I think, Jurgen Klopp maybe and Pep Guardiola. This is beautiful. He's challenged every player every season. And as you know, he challenges them usually when they're almost at their best. That's the beauty of it, because he knows they have arrived. Pep Guardiola doesn't want the rut to set in. The rut that has settled in at Liverpool already, and maybe some other teams that I've mentioned in the past, right? So how do you challenge these players? Obviously they have to perform, because you look at the places, there's a fight to be in the starting 11. But it's funny. I do agree with him. I mean, there's a lot more. Look, this is a special player, and we saw a special goal from him as well. And I love this about Pep Guardiola, because he goes out there right after a performance like this, right after a goal that was very much needed, not because of the play, because they dominated Leicester City that I was very disappointed with in the approach from Brendan Rodgers, because you at home, and they didn't really put a glove on Manchester City at all. But at a time like this, in a difficult game like that, you have to have a special player sometimes to step up. And you know what? If it's not Haaland, well, there's De Bruyne. If it's not him, it's going to be Bernardo Silva. If it's not Bernardo Silva, you can name just about every player and feel comfortable that they're capable of getting you that goal 99% of the time.
But step up he did. It came from a set piece, that goal. And yes, there were chances. Ward made a number of saves in this. City, as you say, dominant, had their shots. But were you ever concerned at all about them not scoring in this game?
Normally I say no, but we know there's going to be a game like this, and it's the same conversation, and I'm with Pep on this when he says, okay, we didn't score, but we created a million chances, we had the ball, and we just didn't score because somebody, it's impossible to ask for perfection every game, and that's why. Was I concerned a little bit? Yeah. I mean, after that, the one chance that I can remember was Yuri Tillemans. Remember his volley? Yeah. By the way, he scores that volley. That's actually a better goal than De Bruyne in my book. If he scored that out of the air, coming across his body on a full volley like that, it's tougher than a set piece from a standing ball when you have time. Not taking anything away from De Bruyne, because you couldn't place that ball any better. So concern, you worry about it, but not really. I always feel when I watch Manchester City that they will eventually score, and I think that's credit to that team.
And they proved it again for you this week. Spurs proved a little bit this week. They came back against Bournemouth. They won the game 3-2. There's been some pressure on Antonio Conte of late due to recent results. It looked like it was going to be another defeat. It ended in a win. Do we give credit to him for his changes here?
No. How do we, what do you mean give it changes? I mean, why didn't he start him in the first place? Those are his best players. So, I mean, okay, eventually he brought on the Dyers, the Bentancur, who's been their best player. I mean, I give him no credit. And what happened here? I mean, he got away with one, I suppose, but he
So your view is that he got his lineup wrong in the first place?
Well, of course. I mean, he was looking at Olympic Marseille, right? I mean, midweek. I mean, he was trying to save some of his best players. I mean, you look at that, the back three, you'll never see them again in a formation like this, right? I mean, no Romero again at all. I don't. Was he even in the squad? I don't think he was. No Eric Dyer, who hasn't missed a minute, I don't think, the entire season so far. No Bentancur, who was absolutely wonderful throughout the season so far. Yes, I mean, this is a team that wants to win on all fronts. So he thought it was going to be enough to stay in the game and somehow win it. So, of course, he brought his best players in the second half because you're 2-0 down. So I'm not giving him any credit. I would have done the same. Okay, you would have done the same thing, right? I mean,
I will say, though, I think, was it the Manchester United game? He didn't make changes. He kept going the way he was. Maybe he did much later in the game. I think it was that game. And I remember on FC, Craig Burley was annoyed about that. So I'd be interested.
Well, but I don't remember the lineup, but I bet you he had his best lineup on the pitch already. So, I mean, he didn't make changes because, the depth of that squad isn't there, right? So, no, I mean, no, we can't give him credit for that. I mean, those players supposed to come in. Yes, they contributed and score goals. Set pieces, as we know, he has his favorite, set piece manager back. They're very good at that, and we saw that. I think was in Dyer and even on Bentancur. I think Bentancur's first shot was blocked, and then he followed up on that, if I remember correctly. But no, I mean he got away with one. He's in church right now, Antonio Conte. I promise you. Right after the game, if he didn't go to church, and thank God for it. Quietly, he'd surely admit it, because that looked like a game that wasn't winnable. A draw he would have been happy, very happy with a play there.
You're the Express. Excuse me. You're the Express.
I'm not expert, but
you're the Express's Pep Guardiola today. You want more from Conte. It's not enough. You still want more from him, even though they had this comeback win. Listen, he's talked about pieces that he needs. We don't even know if he's going to be in there. He talked about them needing to be 2 or 3 more transfer windows to get this team right. The upcoming transfer window in January, what does he need?
Look, first and foremost, I think the biggest issue right now with Antonio Conte is Antonio Conte, because he hasn't signed a new contract yet. He's smart. He knows how to play with Levy. The only person in the world that knows how to pull the strings with Levy, and I bet you Levy doesn't like it, right? Because he loves to be in control. The contract's there. I don't think, obviously, he's going to sign in until the very, till late, because that's his way of putting pressure, right? I don't get what I want something in January, right? And of course, you ask me what that is wingbacks. I mean, he doesn't have to play Antonio Conte ball. You have to have wing backs, and he doesn't have. There's no way that they're even close to the quality. I've talked about Sessegnon. I've talked about Emerson Royal. Not good enough for that. Not for the biggest competitions as well. Doherty plays there. We all know he's not a wing back, and Antonio Conte plays him out of necessity. We saw a little bit of brilliance from Perisic, right, on one of the goals in cross as he came in. But I think we also understand that he can't do that every 3 days in all those competitions. So that's what he's going to do. The one worry I have with Antonio Conte, because of course Juventus' job may be open, and obviously there's going to be,
which I feel was talked about more before this result. In the lead up to this game, we were hearing a lot about the Juve job, and would Conte just abandon ship at Spurs anyway to go and take that?
My issue with him not signing the contract, and I do believe he's going to stretch that because he's going to use that as leverage, is also that what message does that send to everybody else, right? Because right now, again, if you're Heung-min Son, and if you are Harry Kane, you're saying, well, if he's not committing, I'm out of here. There's already rumors about Son. There's a number of teams that want him, right? And obviously, they're probably having some conversation with Antonio Conte. I don't know how open he is to his own players, what his plans may be. But I think, in a way, the longer he doesn't sign, the more this team is going to be unsettled and could crumble if he doesn't sign.
All right, let's move on to talk about some big wins for the likes of Manchester United and Arsenal. Manchester United with a 1-0 win over West Ham. Marcus Rashford, the goal scorer in this one, his 100th Manchester United goal. He's been talking as well this week, saying and admitting that he wasn't in the right headspace last season. He said, you know, he had to get his priorities right. He has to put football first. But he was the most attacking threat in this game. He did get the goal as well. I want to look overall at his career at Manchester United. Have you been underwhelmed or happy with how he's performed?
Numbers aren't bad, but yeah, there's a lot more to it. We all know it, right? I'm past the potential because we questioned that. How long we're going to wait for that? Sometimes it does take a right environment, and the environment wasn't ready for him. I mean, he is injured quite a bit, which is a separate issue. That's not an issue of talent, but it's an important one. But again, under the last two coaches, he probably didn't feel the love. He wasn't the one that everybody was looking at. And you could see now that it's different. The environment is a lot more positive. I also think, you know, he looks happy. He looks like he's ready to break out, isn't he? I mean, he's breaking out quietly, but he almost looks at that level that we all were hoping for, right? If you look at the player himself and you say, wow, you could see it, right? You walk a little bit taller, you try a few things, right? And I think the body language has been negative from him for a long time. To some degree, as a player, I don't blame him because, as I said, I mean, he was never kind of the one. Even though Manchester United weren't at their best, I never felt like Marcus Rashford was the first player on the team sheet. I think he feels that. And, you know, the big question still remains with Cristiano Ronaldo. And again, you and I talked about it last time. And this was a great example of that, this particular match, because they were both getting in each other's way. And I continue to say this was a great example for me that Cristiano Ronaldo is the fifth wheel in this team. He really is. I mean, there were a couple of times where they were making the same runs. They were asking for the same ball. Again, Cristiano Ronaldo with an average game at best again. So yeah, I think it's a massive positive in terms of what we're seeing from Marcus Rashford.
Let's talk about Christian Eriksen then. Great showing from him. And it's just amazing that he's been able to come into this side and do what he's done. And we were talking just the other week, Janusz, about how you do notice already when he's not in this team that they miss him.
In so many ways, and it's not that the facts are out there. Maybe they are, you know, I mean, sometimes I don't want to really get too deep in the weeds and spend my time constantly looking how many balls, passes, you know, and all that. But in so many ways, I feel that Eriksen is the most important player on this team, more important than almost anybody. And I'll tell you why, because, you know, if you look at Manchester United, for the most part, even under this coach, I mean, they like to play on the break, right? But Manchester United are bigger than that. They need to carry the games. And that's an issue, right? That's when you have a balanced team, which we often talk about. And in order for Manchester United to have that balanced team, now that they have the anchor in Casemiro, you have to have a player like Xavi was, right? Like Pirlo was. A player that in possession, even if it's tight, is not afraid to dink that ball over the back four, which he does very well. He did it in this game, and I continue to watch for it. And that's the beauty of it, that they're always going to be very good on the break because they have the players, even if you look at Rashford and others with Anthony, they can break. There's no questions about that, and they're pretty good at that. But I think there are times where you do have to kind of break down two banks of four, whatever it may be. And it's easy to say, well, you got to play the game wide. You got to get the fullbacks involved. That's all great. And you do have to do that. But sometimes you have to have the quality to do that. Now, Bruno Fernandes is also a player that can do that as well. But I just think that Eriksen is a perfect deep lying playmaker, the one that will drop off, the one that will take the ball away from a center back, or maybe sometimes when he gets back in between the center backs to get the ball off a goalkeeper, right? You know how important is bringing the ball out of the back now. That's something that, you know, it's a buzzword as well. And I don't necessarily think that Manchester United have those type of players. Think about it. When I think of Lisandro Martinez, I think he's capable. Harry Maguire, okay, yes. But when they have the ball, even Varane, they're good. But when Eriksen drops in there and gets it, that's a different story. And then he can find Bruno Fernandes, who can do the same thing a little bit higher up the pitch as well. So I think Eriksen's been good. I think there's more to come from him. And I do think that he's in many ways a key to Manchester United's success.
So we're starting to see players feeling important under Ten Hag. We saw how important De Gea's save was in this game. So what's your assessment of United at this point? Because it sounds to me like you're saying that Ten Hag is laying those foundations of his team right now.
Yeah, he's got the spine, doesn't he? I mean, you know, I always look, we've talked about Arsenal, lack of spine for how many years? It's different, right? You're talking about Manchester City, they have that. Liverpool, I still, when healthy and playing well, they have those type of players, right? With Manchester United, I think that was lacking for years. And right now, De Gea was always great. And he showed his greatness in the last few minutes of this particular game because, you know, a couple of unbelievable saves from him. Lisandro Martinez is making many people look silly.
They still won't admit it, though.
Well, you know, I mean, the story is still to be told. I mean, it's not like he's the sort of player that you right away warm up to and say, well, absolutely, in this league, he's going to be the one. But so I can understand that. I think, you know, when he was making all those mistakes, I mean, I wonder, didn't you? I mean, you have to wonder. Yeah, I mean, you see this, the adjustment period, obviously players need that. And he's proving that he is a bulldog and he reads the game well. And it's, you know, it's one of those players that he's tough to get by. Look, Harry Maguire coming up, perfect timing, right? And look, you bring him at a time where things are going well. So now all of a sudden, Harry Maguire, no pressure on him. Different sort of pressure if, say, United was still under Rangnick or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, where, okay, Maguire's back, let's look at him. And I promise you, everybody would be just looking about Harry Maguire. But he comes into a team that's in a good place. And all of a sudden, I don't even remember if Harry Maguire played well or not. But I don't remember him not playing terribly.
Right, because that tells the story in itself.
Right? I mean, I remember being in that time. There's sometimes you get an opportunity where you know teams in a bad place and the expectations are too high. Nobody's playing well, and the coach says, "Here, go play." I think this was a right timing to bring Harry Maguire in because things are, I want to say good at Manchester United.
And things are very good at Arsenal right now. They had a 5-0 win. Reece Nelson, exceptional in this game. Standout player of the match, just 22 years old. And everybody's talking about him after this game. Yes.
I didn't read any reports today. My apologies about Bukayo Saka, because obviously losing him would be an issue. But to come in for Saka under pressure like that, for a player that hasn't scored a goal in 2 years, he scores 2 goals in 4 minutes. So, I mean, you can't complain, right? Because depth is always an issue. And up until that, I didn't necessarily look at Reece as a player that's true depth. Maybe he is. He's going to obviously have to confirm that, right? Couple games, because he's had a couple of good appearances, are not going to change that, but it's certainly going to give him a lot of momentum and confidence, I suppose. So, this result, this win was exactly what the doctors ordered, wasn't it? I mean, it was absolutely perfect, because every team is going to go through that period, a little bit of a question. Southampton 1-1, which, as you know, I didn't think was a big deal, but some already, because there's just so many people that want Arsenal to fail, right? It's like, we told you so. You and I have been there. And then, of course, in Europe, that wasn't a good result, and the way they play against PSV Eindhoven. But then you look at to bounce right away. That's exactly what every team needs after results like that, and I think they have. Martinelli looked different. Gabriel Jesus, even though still hasn't scored, but I thought he was absolutely outstanding without scoring once again. Odegaard was quieter, but still got a great goal as well. So goals are coming. There's a bounce back, and here we are, what, 13 games in, and they're still top of the table.
Still top.
They're fighting to stay up there.
Arteta said himself, with everything Jesus is offering, obviously Jesus will get frustrated by this, but with everything he's offering, he's not worried about that. You just mentioned Martinelli. Is he a top 5 player in the Premier League right now?
Yeah, there or thereabout, and I still don't know how good he can be, because he's one of those right now that he's so confident, so exciting, that sometimes it's hard to get a read on him, right? When I look at players like this, I always think that it's almost too much of youthful exuberance, which isn't a bad thing, but I see him trying things that sometimes say, no, don't go. There's a simpler way. But because you're so confident, he's the sort of player that's, short of being on a cloud nine, he wants to try things. He's like, oh, let me see if that's going to work. And I love that about attacking players, by the way. And it's awesome. But I think it almost needs that when he recognizes that, is that too much effort? Can I get from point A to point B in an easier way? Do I have to do all of that to get the same result? And once he comes there, I think he's going to be exceptional. But that takes experience, doesn't it? I mean,
I was just going to say that I feel like I hear those stories so many times from working with all you ex-pros, that it takes experience and maturity to realize which bits you need to lose from your game to actually better your game.
Well, the decision making, it's true. Like, on television it looks different. When you're on the pitch, I mean, when you frame the pitch, I mean, how many pictures do you take? Millions, right? I mean, you're thinking, what's coming? When is the ball coming? What am I going to do next? Should I do? And sometimes, a lot of times, you play by instincts. And the best in the world, of course, have that vision, but also have to play by instinct. And I think, I'm probably getting too deep, but there's got to be some conflict, because he feels that he can do anything. He's quick enough. He's technically superb, right? He's got the pace, he's got the first step, he's got the end product as well. But I still think he's almost like feeling it, how far I can go, how far can I push, which works great. But I almost wonder that somebody out there is going to take him, maybe it's Arteta, or somebody's going to, in the video session, is going to say, okay, I don't want you to lose that. Take everybody on, right? I want you to engage that defender. Now, once you beat him, you don't have to beat him twice. I almost get that feeling that sometimes he wants to beat the same player twice. I don't want to say for the effect of it, but it looks that way. And there's going to be a time where it clicks, where he's just, look, beat a player. Thank you very much. You're gone. The next one is, okay, how do I finish that?
Right. Yeah. Don Hutchison told us about when he was told once, you're doing too much, and he could not understand how you could be doing too much. And he said it took a few years. And one day he was on the pitch and he had that aha moment of, oh, yeah, they were right. I don't need to do all that.
People like us can't understand that, by the way. I talk a good game, but, I mean, to be at that level, to kind of do what he does and to try things like he does, I mean, I understand watching it, but when you're in that situation, it's so difficult, because he's got, he does some wonderful things. So look, I mean, top 5, my favorite questions. I was right away thinking, okay, who's my 1, 2, 3, 4? Okay, we don't have time for that. But surely he,
But you had to stop and think, which says something.
Right. Well, yeah. I think he's there. He's right. I mean, the way he's playing, and for sure, top 5, 6, wherever you want to go.
Are they there?
Going to get, hopefully, hey, let me know in the comments, where he is and who do you think's ahead of him.
Will you say they can win it yet?
They can. I said they're top of the look. I mean, this was a funny thing.
You think they can, but they won't.
No, they won't, because I have a feeling when Manchester City finally gets to the top of the table, they're not giving that away. That pressure is going to be too much for Arsenal.
We were going to do Newcastle on any other business, but I have a feeling we'll get to revisit that anyway, because we're running out of time, and I'd really like to get some of these questions answered from our viewers. And thanks so much for being along with us and for all the lovely comments you've sent us. Let me pull a few of these out, Janusz. What would affect the teams more due to the Winter World Cup? Players who don't go to the World Cup not being up to the pace of the Premier League after the extended break, or players being fatigued after a longish run into the final stages of the World Cup?
Yeah, again, I mean, it's one of those fence questions, right? I mean, you can justify. I could justify my answer from both. Look, if I had a choice, I want to go to the World Cup, right? Psychologically, you're at the biggest stage. You think of yourself as one of the best in the world. You're competing in a competition that others would die for to be there, right? So, look, some are going to be again flying high because they're going to get there deep. There's going to be an element of disappointment for these players for sure, because if you don't win it, then yes, part of you is going to be disappointed. But I go to the World Cup. I think it's more difficult sitting back home, not playing competitive football, and watching your friends or teammates on television and thinking, man, I would love to be there, right? So I think that's more difficult. But again, I mean, you can justify maybe less chance of getting injured. But no, going to the World Cup, I think it's better. I think it's going to affect the players staying home because who they're going to be training with, right? A lot of these teams are going to be decimated by their teammates and friends going to the World Cup. I think it's tough.
We'll carry some of the relegation questions over. Thanks for sending them into the next show. But the last question I've got for you today is, who would you say has been the best signing of the season so far, besides Haaland, of course, But anyway, there's a few names mentioned here if you'd like to pick one of these. Eriksen, Martinez or Anthony for United, Pope from Newcastle, Cody, Everton, Perisic, Spurs, Gabriel Jesus, Arsenal, or is there somebody else that stands out?
I think I've answered sort of you asking me, maybe not, but I'm sticking with Gabriel Jesus.
Right.
I think without him as that anchor, what he does on the pitch to bring others into the game, scoring goals as well, I don't think Arsenal are where they are. Take him away and it's a different team. And I think you can see that sometimes when Eddie Nketiah plays, and you're nothing against Nketiah and all that, but I think you see that. And if, knock on wood, he gets injured, he's unavailable, I think you're going to immediately see an Arsenal team that's different and not as good. So I'm not going away from that. Nick Pope is a big one for me as well. I think Newcastle needed them. They're smart in the way they've done their business so far. Everybody, the big powers are worried, aren't they? They should be worried because this is the beginning. And Nick Pope was very, very important. I loved him at Burnley. As you know, I have a soft spot for Sean Dyche and Burnley when they were in the Premier League. I thought Nick Pope always deserved to be playing on a bigger club. So he would be, close second for me out of that group that you just read.
Yeah, and as I've mentioned here, leading the league in clean sheets. We send Bukayo Saka our best wishes. We'll revisit that topic as well once we know more and what it will mean for Arsenal if he's out for any longer period of time. But for now, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back to do it all again next week.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.